So the vid I was planning on doing earlier, the WEF's Eswar Prasad, I'll go with that, admits that the programmability of CBDCs will enable government to impose expiry dates and dictate what they can and cannot be spent on. Remember, not only what they can or cannot be spent on, but expiry dates. Now, let me explain things that, I mean, it's truly scary. And believe me, occasionally I still get a cultist one, giving me a wee bell now and again. And, like, Scott, what do you think about, well, things like crypto, things like that. And all along I've kept saying, look, it's ones and fucking zeros in a fucking hard drive or on the internet, but it's somewhere on a fucking hard drive somewhere, yeah? And everything, at least since the 90s, has got more backdoors, hardware-wise, never mind software-wise, yeah? Otherwise, they would not exist as motherboard manufacturers, etc., blah, blah, blah. But you can't tell people, and this religion of crypto. But remember, behind the scenes, if you're trying to get the public out there, most of the population to embrace something that essentially doesn't... I mean, look, back in the day, and when you look historically, you had things like, what was it called? The tally stick system. That was apparently effective in the UK for about 700 years. Don't quote me, but and previous to that, silver, gold, go back to the Romans, go back to whatever, and even in the 1900s, you could quote the decade, X amount of decades ago. For a certain amount of gold, you could buy a suit, you could buy X, Y, and Z, blah blah blah, of a certain value. But and X amount of decades ahead, that same piece of, for example, gold, whatever it may be, coinage, blah, 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 could still get you that suit, all the rest of it, etc. Paper money, well, it used to be backed by gold, and then afterwards, well, faith. But that wasn't even enough for these guys, because at least with this paper, because remember, you can barter with anything as long as whatever you are societally is seen as an intrinsic value, and you get a certain amount of goods. But anyway, we're off at tangents, but are we? But yeah, at least even with paper money, there was anonymity. Yeah, you just handed over cash. Maybe you saved up, whatever. Some people didn't trust banks, for example. And so everything they did was not even checks, blah, blah, blah. Just here's cash, blah, blah, blah. And funnily enough, it was accepted in far more places than, as the old adverts for American Express, far more places than American Express. But that's not enough for these people. Remember, think about it. People, for thousands of years, realized an intrinsic value in something they held themselves. Whether it was gold, silver, shit, whatever the hell it was. Wood, in the form of tally sticks, whatever. But it was in their hands. This digital currency, it's just quite literally government control. Remember, even if you think you're wealthy, yeah, you might say the wrong thing. All you need to do is look at Ireland, and there is quite literally people across there who have had their bank accounts quite literally emptied, and any pay that goes in it goes straight to government coffers based on what they apparently said. You could look at Canada. Oh, I support truckers, for example. Well, anybody funding them? Well, I'm sorry, we're gonna have to look at their accounts and just, stop giving them access to them. Yeah. There is no end to where this goes, but all along in recently years, crypto's going to save us. I've tried to tell occultists, honestly, the ones that keep in touch, who I'd have thought would know better. Listen, historically, what's always been well worth? I mean, even when you look in the 1930s in America, they had this Gold Act where any gold you had to hand it into government and get a set amount of money and all the rest of it. They clued up. Even then, we're like, oh no, fuck that. I'll put it under my house. I'll do whatever. But yeah, they were far better off for it. Yeah. But now we're seeing history repeat itself in so many ways. But now we're at advanced levels. Forget any kind of, because remember, over time you'll own nothing and you better be happy. But remember, even if you've been a conniving shite, doing well for yourself, knowing what's going on and all the rest of it, if you're going down the line of anything digital, you're going to get fucked over. You absolutely are. Yeah. But anyway, nobody's believing me, so let's just expand and let's play under fair use some of this.
And the one final note I will make is that if you think about the benefits of digital money, there are huge potential gains. It's not just about digital forms of physical currency. You can have programmability, units of central bank currency with expiry dates. You could have, as I argue in my book, a potentially better and some people might see it, or a darker world where the government decides that units of central bank money can be used to purchase some things, but not other things that it deems less desirable, like, say, ammunition or drugs or pornography or something of the sort. And that is very powerful in terms of the use of a CBDC. And the one final note I will...
Now, you could go in, even in that very short clip, you could go into more detail. For example, Americans, they have this thing called the right to bear arms, yeah? And under a digital currency, under one of those CBDCs, think about what he said. Well, what if they just say, well, you can no longer buy ammo or guns or whatever, and that's it, done. It's it. What quicker way to disarm the American people who have this thing called the right to bear arms? Digital currency. None of it's rocket science. But as regards UK, well, even the things like, well, sorry, you had you had your 40 grams of meat this week, so you can't buy anything else on that. But crickets, yeah, no problem there. We can allow you to buy that. Yeah, there is no end to where this goes. But it absolutely ties into ongoing eugenics and population reduction in general, and of course control over the many by the few. Although, as I've always said, they're not as few as people like David Icke try and tell me. Oh, it's only a few people around the world at the top of... No. It is, by and large, about 10% of society that's involved in this at all levels. Be assured of that. When you start looking at these various underlying occultist groups and Theosophy, humanism, New Age, blah, 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 Freemasonry, Eastern Star, they're a whole shit show list. But nobody seems to really focus on them. But then that's why they're so successful. Anyway, you've been great company, and I'll speak to you soon.